Hi, everybody. This is Scott with MarTech Talk, and today we are fortunate to have with us Glenn Gaudet, who is the founder and CEO of GaggleAMP. Welcome.
Scott, thanks for having me on the show.
As you might know, if you tour around IdeaGrow's website, GaggleAMP is a partner, and we have been working with GaggleAMP for some time now with some of our clients on employee advocacy. So, Glenn, gosh, you've been doing this about 8 years now, is that right?
Yeah, it'll be 8 years this fall. So, wow.
Can you talk about how the company and the idea came about and what got you started?
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where you know, they talk about HP starting in somebody's garage. This thing kind of started in my kitchen. The idea actually came from a job interview that I had. You know, my past experience was as a chief marketing officer, so I look at the world in a certain way. And I was talking to the CEO of this company, and they were asking me, now let's go back. This is in the Wayback Machine. This is over 8 years ago. They were asking me about the social media, and social media is part of marketing. And at the time, they were a company that had absolutely no, just really no digital marketing presence at all. So it had been a traditional marketer. They certainly had sales tools for the sales team, but beyond that, there was really nothing. And they competed against Cisco, as in Cisco, the technology vendor. So they were already behind the eight ball, if you will. And the challenge was, how do you go from this point of view to the next point of view, which is, all right, actually have a digital strategy. We've got some digital assets. And then how do we get those digital assets out there, and how do we get people to start consuming those assets? Well, social media was still early on 8 years ago. I mean, it's somewhat mainstream now, but back then a lot of people didn't know how things would actually work. So we had this conversation, and I said, you know, you're starting from scratch, so why don't we get the employees involved? Because, and I said, well, how many employees do you have? And the amount of employees they had was like about 1,000 employees. So why not tap into that? Because some amount of the employees, even back then, pretty much had a LinkedIn presence. You know, some of them had Twitter. And I said, well, why don't we tap into them and see if they can help us out? Well, I went home that night to actually look for a product that we could do what I said they could do, and nothing existed. So instead of actually going down the path of taking a position there and trying to build this thing from the inside, I actually thought it was an idea worth pursuing separately, and started my own company, and here we are 8 years later.
What's the curve been like for you in terms of growth? How long did it take you to put the product together and to start to get people to kind of realize the value of it?
Well, it's interesting. So I started the company in the fall of 2010. And by the spring of 2011, we actually had something, what I would call a minimally viable product at that point. And we put that out into beta. And we got a dozen plus companies of varying sizes, some very large, some very small, because we wanted a full kind of range to see how different size companies would use this. And they used it, and they got some really amazing results. And back then, the initial product did three things. You could share a message on Facebook, share a message on LinkedIn, share a message on Twitter. That's it. Today, of course, there's over 50 different activities you can do, and it's not just about content sharing, it's also about engagement. But back then, that's all you needed, because that's all people were oriented to at that point. So we made that available. We saw the usage, we saw the results. We got pretty excited about that. So then we moved to, I'm not gonna, I didn't coin this phrase, but somebody else coined the phrase, which is the penny test, right? Is somebody willing to pay you some amount of money for this product? Well, so we went into this paid beta concept, right? So we went to all of our beta customers and we said, hey, would you be willing to give us some money for this product? And we just charged them $25 per month to use it. And they came back and most of them said yes. And we got them to pay $25. And at that point, I knew we had something, because now people are actually going to, whatever the amount of money is, they're willing to pay for it. And then, you go to a post-beta scenario, you make it generally available, and we just kept growing from there. An interesting thing, though, is 8 years ago, you were pretty hard-pressed to find somebody with a social media or even a digital title in a lot of companies, where now it's pervasive. So if you want to track the growth of some of the stuff, you can also track the amount of titles that exist in companies of people that are doing it, even in agencies. I mean, if you go back 8 years ago, you could probably tell me some stories about, the average agency. How many of those folks were actually looking at social and digital as a significant part of what their offering was, right?
Right, right. Well, for those who aren't familiar with GaggleAMP, or even the area of employee ambassadorship, can you maybe walk through a use case of how a GaggleAMP implementation works, in terms of from the marketing person deciding to do it, to what's involved in getting set up, to
Sure.
what it's like to run the program?
Yeah, from the get-go, the people that we were targeting in terms of the administrators, we actually call them managers of what we call a Gaggle. They were the folks who were in the digital marketing group. They were the people with the social media titles or the digital marketing titles. And the whole idea was, those are the people that really know what they want to do from a campaign, from an ongoing digital marketing perspective. So those are the people who would really know what the employees should be doing from a digital marketing perspective, because the rank and file employee is not a marketing person typically. The rank and file employee might be a salesperson, they might be an engineer, they might be somebody in accounting. So these are not the people who are always well-versed in all things marketing, particularly on the digital side, as well as well-versed in even what to say about the company. So there's a fear factor that a lot of employees have, which is the idea of taking a piece of content, taking an activity that is suggested by marketing, that has the marketing premature, it has the marketing packaging around it, and then the employee gets to decide whether or not they want to do that, right? And we also figured out that one of the important things is, do not overwhelm your employees. So the way this works is, when a company has a digital strategy, when the company has a content strategy, then they can use a solution like GaggleAMP to help make it super easy now for their employees to be part of that digital marketing effort. That make sense?
Yeah.
And then from there, what the marketing manager can do is it prepackages these different activities, and so the rank and file employee might have between 5 or 10 things to do, say a day or a week, depending on the organization. But most time it's going to be some activities per day, right? Now the big distinction here is to not overwhelm. So
what might be an example of, if you could describe 5 or 6 activities that an employee might be asked to do, what would be a good example of those?
Yeah, I mean, a real basic one would be maybe we want the employees to retweet something that the CEO put out on a Twitter handle, or it could be maybe there's a partner out there that they want to give them some tweet love, or maybe there's an industry influencer that's on LinkedIn they want them to connect with or follow with. But it goes beyond just kind of the core social networks. But maybe what you want to do is you want to get all of your employees to write a review on Glassdoor about what it's like to work at the company, right? So all of these things have the concept of engagement baked into it, right? So yes, there is content sharing, which is an important part. That's kind of like that's your ante, if you will. So you need some basic content that you want people to participate in and share and consume, but you also want to layer in different kinds of engagement activities to really make that content and your digital strategy really rise up through the noise that exists out there today with social media. So content alone is not going to do it. Content plus engagement activities really has a powerful impact. Did I answer your question?
It does. Is there if I'm a business and I'm a company looking at GaggleAMP or similar tools, is there a threshold of a number of employees that's important? Does it matter if my employee base is in one place or distributed? What are some of the factors to consider in choosing a solution like GaggleAMP?
Well, one of the things we learned early on is there is no such thing as the one type of company, right? Companies have, as diverse as the companies are, they have very diverse marketing plans, very diverse content strategies, very diverse digital strategies. You layer onto that companies are not always located in the same places, right? They might have a central office one here, but they might have 20 offices around the world. They might have hundreds of offices around the world, and those offices have different roles, like whether it be roles in terms of the types of employees they are, or it could be tied to a particular business unit or a product line. It could also be local language, right? So if I have an office in France, the kinds of things they're going to be discussing in France is going to be very different from the office that they're discussing here in the US or somewhere in South America, right? So there's language differences, there's locality differences. And so what you want to be thinking about is, how do I actually take these activities and this content and segment it in such a way so that I get the right kinds of activities and content to the right people? And that's where you need a platform. In our case, we have a platform that allows you to do it both at an individual group level as well as broadly by actually creating different types of groups. We call those groups gaggles. And so you might have a gaggle that's actually all in French. You might have a gaggle that's all in English or all in Russian, depending on where your office is. Beyond that, you also want to think about not just from a language point of view, but what's appropriate content and what's appropriate activities that you want these folks to actually be engaged with. So in some cases, you're actually going to move the management of that to that local group. So you might have a digital marketer in France, you might have a digital marketer in Colombia, and they are the people who may be taking some source materials and activities from corporate, but also taking it to the next level and saying, you know, we really need to localize this, whether it be from a language or a voice perspective, or even from a product perspective, right? So some things you can do universally, but most things you're going to have to do at that local level to really have the appropriate resonation that you want to really make that your digital campaigns get the impact that you're looking for.
We work at Idea Growth, as you know, exclusively with B2B tech companies. So for companies that are B2B and technology, are there some unique kind of considerations when you're thinking about a tool like GaggleAMP?
Well, I think they're uniquely positioned for a tool like that because you have a high knowledge worker base of employees, right? And those knowledge workers tend to have some of your basic social networks that they personally are connected to. LinkedIn, somewhat universal in the B2B knowledge worker space, right? Some portion of them are going to have Facebook, some portion of them are going to have Twitter. If they're in other countries, say they're in Germany, they might have a Zing account, which is kind of unique to that area. So those are the kinds of things that you're looking for in an employee base for it to be effective. And the fact when you're B2B tech, they're usually a very high concentration of that to begin with. So you're uniquely positioned already to be successful in that. And then you have to layer in, okay, where's my audience, right? Is my audience on certain digital assets, certain digital social media areas? You know, are they on Twitter? Are they on LinkedIn? Where are they? Are they on certain websites? Maybe there's some forums out there. So those are the things you want to be thinking about to see how I can get my employees now to be part of that engagement, make sure that I'm focusing in the right areas.
I know that we enjoyed being at your conference recently, and came with our client Pivot 3 and talked about our experiences with Pivot 3 and a successful GaggleAMP program, employee ambassadorship program powered by GaggleAMP. Can you talk about overall maybe a really compelling success story or two among your customers that would be, you know, give people an idea of what they could aspire to?
Sure. I mean, so first of all, thank you for coming to Amplify. It's our annual event that we do in June of every year, and it's really a deep dive from practitioners. This is not where GaggleAMP gets up there and talks about product all the time. This is where we have practitioners using a variety of different solutions to come in and share their experiences on how they grew, how they started, you know, how they are successful. So to give you a couple of examples, and I have to be careful about using different company names because large companies tend not to like their name used, but these examples I'll give you are very, very well-known companies. So there would be household names for most of your viewers and listeners today. But one of the things that we've seen is a success factor, you know, ranging from smaller companies, right? You might have 50 or 100 people, all the way up to the companies that have tens of thousands of employees, right? And I think each one takes a little different approach. So if I've got a company of 100 people, I remember I was talking to one of our customers. They had a smaller company with only 25 people in their Gaggle. So they had 25 people. And what they were able to do is show up on the radar of the Gartner analysts, because what they were doing is they were having their employees follow certain Gartner analysts. They were having their employees retweeting certain Gartner analyst tweets. And then all of a sudden, what happens is, now that you've got this kind of coordinated approach, even with just 25 people, it started to register with the folks at Gartner. And then when they actually did a tour in which they actually sat down and talked to some of these analysts, they'd say, hey, you all just kind of showed up on our radar. What is it that you're doing there, right? And so it's not always the kind of thing where it's really overt that there's an awareness campaign taking place. We had somebody come and share an experience actually at last year's event where they were talking about using it from a PR perspective and how they were going out and actually really getting press members to actually start writing more about that company. And they were using their different engagement strategies within GaggleAMP to actually, again, get some awareness, get some excitement, and it all flows back. So, I mean, that's kind of from a general awareness point of view. But we have companies that are also using it from a lead gen perspective. I remember one of the major marketing automation tools out there that uses our product. This is like one of their top ways that they drive webinar registrations, because what they're doing is they're putting out social posts and they're getting their employees to really engage with those posts, which now gets it shared and interacted with all of their followers. So it's driving all of these registrations for them, which obviously is lead gen. So there's a lot of different approaches that you can take and a lot of different outcomes. You just need to be really clear about, you know, what's your outcome and how do I build the kinds of combinations of activities that's going to help me achieve those outcomes.
The GaggleAMP allows for gamification so that you can provide incentives to people that meet ambassadorship objectives. What have you found have been the kind of incentives or rewards that seem to resonate and work well with employees?
Oh yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, you see some of the standard things might be you go raid the marketing tchotchke closet, right? And you give out those T-shirts or water bottles that were not given away at the last trade show. We've also seen some things where there's just things like recognition, right? Like maybe what they'll do is they'll put maybe the top performers on some sort of a weekly or a monthly basis in the employee newsletter and really recognize them there. Recognition actually, it goes far beyond most of the time anything you can get tangibly, right? A lot of people just really want that recognition. So there's things like that. We've seen some really fun things like, and this is not at our, we didn't come up with this, but I thought it was a really great idea. Dinner with the CEO for the real top performer, or dinner with the founder, you know, things like that. So there's a lot of fun things you can do, but we also have just a leaderboard. And that actually was an idea from one of our customers early on. It's just like, well, let's get some competition going with this. It really is one of those things where it's a friendly competition, but boy, people get competitive. They really like seeing their score raised when they're actually doing the activities. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. What we actually recommend against is trying to make, you're not trying to buy participation, right?
Yeah.
You're just trying to make it fun. Trying to make it a little exciting, a little competitive, but you're not trying to buy participation, because if you have to buy participation, you probably don't have the right company culture to make any of this work.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm making some notes about that. Those are some good ideas. Well, gosh, we're coming up on a half hour. I want to let you get back to your day, but before we go, can you talk a little bit about the future that you see for programs like this, employee ambassadorship in general? What do you think is going to be coming down the pike?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned in the beginning, you know, we started with 3 different activities, and then what we saw is the need for lots of engagements to actually uplift that. Where we see this all going is really more around the employees, right? In terms of how do we make it super simple for them now to be part of the conversation by contributing content. So right now they can recommend things, right, to the Gaggle managers to actually share. But the way we think about it is, you know, how do we now take that to the next level, and where do we take this from the idea of, you know, external but also internal? Where do we take this from the idea of having somebody being just a sharing to the outside world and maybe thinking about what they can do from the inside world, right? So those are the kinds of things that we think about and we get really excited about, that we start really kind of like, all right, how do we now take this to the next level? But at the end of the day, we see this all about, you know, how do we take what we have today, how do we bring it to the point where that really fulfills on the vision that I saw originally, which is, how do we really take all of our employees and not just employees, but also other stakeholders. You also have stakeholders who are like channel partners out there, right? So how do we take all of these people and really give them the ability to participate, not just from the point of view of going out, but how do we get them to participate with each other and strengthen those relationships across the organization? Those are the things that really get us excited.
Cool. Well, we've been excited about GaggleAMP ever since we found you guys. It's been a great partnership, and love to continue to evangelize you guys to our clients and get more clients using it. Thanks for taking the time today, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it.
All right, take care.